Welcome, ladies. It is Camille here. I help single-driven women in how to attract a quality life partner so they can have that loving, passionate, and committed relationship they truly deserve. And I'm really excited to have another amazing guest as part of the interview series called Successful Women in Love, How to Have the Cake and Eat It Too. And I've got an amazing guest here with us. And I've actually just, first of all, welcome Ingrid. Welcome on the call.
Camille, so I love your title and I love your work. You're a truly true gift. So thank you.
Thank you. So I want to just share a little bit about you because what you've done is very, very impressive, and I'd just like to share that to the listeners. So from capital raising, TV development, running her own clothing line endorsed by Kate Winslet, Ingrid has over 20 years experience in marketing and business. She's the founder of IngridArna.com and CEO Diva Business School. Ingrid is a leading money and sales strategist for visionary online entrepreneurs. Love it. The only New Year's resolution Ingrid has been able to stick to is ditching her thong knickers for granny pants. She's never been happier. Well, I can't imagine you in daggy sort of.
I wear them, babe. I've actually got a real passion for them. I think after the pregnancy and then having a cesarean, I was like, no, I just can't go there. And now I've never gone back because it just actually for me is so uncomfortable. I can't believe that I actually went along with that for 20 years. But here we are in the daggy granny pants. Sometimes they have lace and leopard print, but
absolutely.
Mostly daggy. I've never been more. Actually, I'm wearing them today, girlfriend. I am obsessed. I love my granny pants.
Love. Now everyone's just going to imagine you in those sexy granny pants.
Exactly, granny pants. I think the biggest thing with all of that is it's really interesting, creating more comfort and not buying into or get deep here with the whole thing from granny pants, but really making sure that I'm comfortable in my life a lot more and not putting up with things that don't really fit me. So things that cut into me, like physically, spiritually, emotionally, I'm just not up for it. So it's flat shoes and the big panties, and I'm loving life.
Love it. So I mean, you are from what we've heard so far, and I've been following you for a little while now online, and I just was. When I watched your videos, I was just like, oh my God, I need to interview this woman. She's so passionate. She's got so much warmth and elegance, and you're a real ambitious go-getter. So you've done a lot already, of course, and you are driven. You've built a thriving business, and your husband is now part of that, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But with everything you've achieved up until now, what are you most proud of?
I have to say, when I'm looking at her right now, I just sort of have to say my daughter.
Oh, gorgeous.
Obviously, I was going to actually say two things, but really becoming a mother has been just such a blessing. It's also been incredibly challenging. I've never been so sleep deprived in my life. But business to me and the impact that I'm having in the world is really important, but at the end of the day, it really is family. And so my business and everything that I've shaped really has to be in alignment with that. And for many years, even though, yes, I looked successful on the outside, I had a clothing line in New York, I worked in advertising and TV development, as you said, I was really hustling. I was really in a very forced kind of fear-based, I think, reality for myself. And it made me actually physically sick and spiritually sick as well. I had chronic health issues because of it, adrenal issues, which like so many Australians and also Americans, I think 80% of Americans suffer from some form of adrenal issues where we're just sort of in that fight, flight, overly pushing kind of way. So really, I think now everything is shaped around making sure that I build a business from a place of nourishment and where I can have exactly what you're talking about. And it's a work in progress. We were talking about it before, but having my cake and eating it too. That means that no part of my life kind of suffers because I need to make money or I need to be this. I think before there was a lot of insecurity that I had, and I was still always trying to prove myself. And I was also following very much a patriarchal way of building a business. And I didn't really know what it was to build a business more from a divine feminine space that honors a woman's body, that honors making sure that I have a healthy relationship with my partner, that I can be a great mother, that I have time for myself, that I can have time for my own like aloneness, and which I really, really need in order to fill my cup up. So it's taken me, like, you know, in my early 40s, it's taken me my whole entire life through many trials to figure out what works for me. So I suppose on the other side, another thing apart from my daughter that I'm really proud of is my commitment to really making sure that I don't sacrifice myself in the process of achieving success.
Amazing. And when did you decide to actually run your own business the way you are running it now, and sort of leaving because you've done a lot. So how did that sort of happen, if you're happy to share?
Absolutely. Really, I think my catalyst for change in the way that I was running my business came from extreme, as I was mentioning, exhaustion. But I remember giving birth to my daughter 3 years ago and being in hospital, having had a cesarean, still on the phone to clients, I was really, I think, at that point, under-earning and overworking.
Yeah.
Really not valuing myself enough, wanting to be seen as a nice person and really generous. And I still build my business from a place of generosity. I offer a lot of content like you do. But I still then also have, when I do sell something, my services, I make sure that the price point is good in terms of that I'm really deeply rewarded. So there was really about 3 years ago that I made a major shift. And I was really having a kind of crisis point where I'd given birth to my daughter. My husband, when she was 6 weeks old, started traveling. He worked for a big Fortune 500 company. He started traveling all around Australia, basically was never home. And I literally felt like I'd gone back to the early 1900s where I was this, I didn't want to just be a mum. I love my daughter. She's so precious. She's the light of my life. But I have a soul calling, and I was like, okay, this is not really working for me. And so I need more help in the home. I'm not a domestic diva. I don't want to be. This is not my path. I felt miserable, and I thought, well, I've got to change my life. Yeah. So it was really the 3 years that it was through, and like so many of us, right, when we have that breaking point that can really be a breakthrough if we allow ourselves to create the shifts and take that personal responsibility for our own lives. So, yeah, 3 years ago.
Love it.
Yeah.
And of course, my topic is love and relationships. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat about, you know, how you juggle success and business with love. But also I'd love to find out a little bit about, you know, you're married now to what it sounds like a really supportive partner. Did you have any ups and downs when it came to looking for the right sort of guy, or was it always really easy for you?
No, of course not. I do things easier. I'm starting to do that easier now. No, I've never really had a major. I've never felt like maybe when in my early 20s I was a bit more desperate around trying to find a partner. But then something happened. I think I really got quite passionate with my work, and I was quite busy. So I've always been pretty good with attracting men, like in terms of not say when I was much better looking when I was in my 20s. It wasn't so much about that. It was, I just always used to show my personality, and I attracted men, whether I was a bigger girl. My weight has always been, it's quite stable for the last 5 or 6 years, but you know, whether I was bigger or skinnier or this or that, I've always kind of been in touch with, even though I have had many insecurities around my own self too, but it's something weird with men. I always just sort of had a connection to my sensuality, and always believed that, I don't know, I just never had a problem attracting men and having an engaging conversation with men. And then I've spent many years, though, on my own because I've been such a workaholic, trying to prove myself and stuff like that. So I think probably hitting my mid-30s, I was like, okay, I'm feeling a bit lonely. I really want connection. So I met my husband, actually. I was working on a business plan, and I met him in Byron Bay. I'd been living in the United States for 13 years. I came home to Byron Bay. I was working on a business plan. My computer or my new iPod at the time wasn't working, and I had to go to get it fixed. So I was just like desperate to get my iPod fixed. and some guy was working at this computer store, and I remember it, and I was walking up these stairs, and he was walking behind me, and I could feel his eyes on my butt going, oh my God, he's looking at my butt. He ended up being the guy that I married, and he'd gotten divorced. He's younger than me a couple of years. He moved to Byron Bay, left his job for a few years as an engineer, and had moved there with his previous partner, wife. They separated at that time, and we started dating, and I really wasn't looking. My sort of secret to finding a partner too is to not be too desperate or needy. So when I met him, I'll be really honest, like we had this bit of an affair, like a fun time. I started kind of flirting with him while I was fixing my computer. He had no interest in me whatsoever. He was like one of those men just like really focused on getting a job done for me. And I literally, it was just the biggest little flirt. And I don't know, I just liked him.
Perfect, yeah, we're back on. Brilliant. So you were saying you basically, he was fixing your
computer,
and so was there an instant attraction there straight away?
Great question. Yeah, there was. It was bizarre. I was just sort of having fun, and I always intended to go back to the United States, so I don't think I was looking for anything serious, and maybe I was just being playful. I needed a break, and maybe I wouldn't have behaved in that way if I'd been taking myself so seriously or thinking that he was the one or anything like that. But we definitely had a lot in common, and because I've been studying, quantum physics and self-development my whole entire life, and then having a man that had done all these amazing courses in the United States, and there was a definite like-mindedness, which I think for so many women is so important. So that was a real attraction for me.
And at that age, like you said you were in your mid-30s, were you looking, did you want to have children? Was that on, or it wasn't, it was still a bit of a question mark?
I've never been a woman who was like so wanting to have. I was when I was younger, but I think something happened. Like I was very maternal when I was a younger girl, and always I was a kind of girl that always played with dolls when I was really little. But I think when I like a lot, like even in my early sort of, it's a bit embarrassing, maybe at 12 or 13, I remember still playing like with babies, like quite obsessed with wanting to be a mum and all of that. And I think it got kind of shut down as I became incredibly ambitious. Right. And but really, just when I got married, and it came, I don't know, it just came up really, really strong for us both, and we made that decision. I think I've always I had a very difficult relationship with my father, and it was always about like really creating success and wanting to get that approval. So I think I shut down a lot of my more maternal instincts. Like I just was so busy trying to reach whatever level of success I thought I needed to reach, so I shut that down. And I don't think that I really thought that I could have both a successful career and also be a mum.
And we talked about that a little bit before we started the interview, and a lot of my clients are very much like that. They often have that belief that, okay, well, I can either go and be this amazing, really super independent, driven woman who has a great life, or I can sort of, I can have the beautiful relationship but just not really thrive. So, and a lot of that, of course, has to do with how we saw our parents. Like for me, for example, I wanted to be more like my dad because he traveled a lot, and his life seemed so much more appealing, where my mum was a mum, and even though she enjoyed it, it felt like, it didn't feel like she had this big life. So there is still a little bit, and even though we can have both now, of course, like sometimes as women we tend to have those upper limit beliefs. So did you have to work on that a little?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one thing that I had to really work on, was the releasing subconscious beliefs that I also had, where I could only have one or the other. And I was saying before to you that it's really, for me, it was about, and I think I see this a lot in women when it comes to also money things. It's kind of the same issue. It's money, love. It's all a frequency. It's all around receiving. So opening myself to receiving, not having to work like a dog, either at my relationships with people, including men, but also my other relationships, and then also just in my business, that I could have enough space where I don't have to push so hard. That pushing, forced feeling was something I think that I had ingrained into me by my my background, my family, but also just society, I think. I think the other thing that we have to talk honestly about, being a mum and being a businesswoman, and I only have one child, and I don't know if I'll have another one because I've never experienced such love for this precious baby. But at the same time, I've never also experienced such extreme exhaustion to the point where, I'll be working and I felt like I was having dizzy spells and like literally feeling sick in my body because I'm just so pained. And the other day I was saying to my husband, we're having a bit of a giggle about it. I think I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning and I then worked my day and I was a bit tired, but I said it's nothing like getting up 6 times in a night or 4 times in a night with broken sleep and then trying to work. So you can have it all, but it does come with it's not all, a bed of roses. No, yeah, it can be very challenging. I've got girlfriends at the moment. Like one of my girlfriends is a lawyer and she's got her second child, another one who has her second child, and that's a whole other ball game altogether. But it doesn't mean at the same point that, and I know that everyone knows this, but it doesn't mean that it's not completely worth it either. So for me, I've had to learn about resilience, that it will pass. I've had to learn to have naps in the afternoon. I learn even now when I'm structuring my business day, I know when I feel like if I go do too much work. So say I've been up, I wake up just naturally quite early, sometimes 4 a.m. is a normal time for me. But if I've done a pretty big day, about 3 o'clock, I've already done a pretty full day. Then if I keep going beyond that point, I sort of start to push myself too far and I literally start to implode. Like I just physically, after about maybe a week or two of that, I become quite fatigued. And so I've learned how to take incredibly good care of myself and be very responsible around that. So Ingrid, you've done enough. You don't need to go. And then because if I don't, not only does it make me not a very good mother, because how can I really enjoy it then when my daughter comes home, I'm so exhausted, I can't really be there for her and have fun and enjoy with her. And then obviously with my relationship, if I'm so exhausted, I am not maybe as patient as I could be. I'm not as good a communicator as I could be. So I've had to learn, like being, yes, ambitious is great, and we have to have drive and deliberate intent and responsibility, but also the responsibility with self-care and learning when we can tip the body over, and then not only do we start to physically exhaust ourselves, but everything else I'm sure you've seen this in your own life becomes quite exhausting. So I am very grateful that I'm grateful that I didn't miss having a child. But I've just had to it has been very interesting, and I haven't, in terms of learning how to balance it all. And there are a lot of women out there doing great, wonderful things, but they don't completely, I found for myself, share how they do actually balance it all. I don't really know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. But I've had to figure it out myself, what really works for me, where do I feel like I have that tipping point where I just get, I don't mean in a good way tipping point because there's a good way in marketing, but there's a tipping point. I mean like where I start to not feel so good about things, right?
And I guess there's no magic pill either. So I'm curious with your bigger vision. What keeps you ambitious and driven, and what keeps you? Because I mean, you could just choose to sort of like ease off a bit and just cruise for a while, and you could if you wanted to. What keeps you going? What is the bigger vision for you?
I was cruising in the middle of getting ready to do a launch of a cheaper program, like being able to serve women at a price point that's not prohibitive to a lot of women, because a lot of people can't afford to work with me one-on-one. And so that drive has come, yes, of course I make money out of it, but it's bigger than that. My vision is I'm very passionate about 2 core areas with women. One is women suffering financially, and also to do with self-love and really honouring their brilliance and making sure that we bring a lot more beauty into the world through our gifts. So the beautiful work that you're doing is so important. So I love to help women on that level to really own their value, and also the other part, which is so interesting that you're doing, what you're doing right now with interviewing women and sharing their voice and their message. due to my background and some abuse that happened in my earlier years. Even though I come across confident, I had a lot of fear around being truly seen, around that I'm smart enough, good enough, and I found it quite difficult to even get on camera and speak. And it's ironic that I do videos. I've had to push past all of that. Like the first time I did it, video and then saw myself, I was like, oh my God, I actually can string a sentence together. Oh, I actually look, okay. Just because of my negative talk. So because of my own issues that I've had in my life, it's a very deep pull for me that goes beyond me. I just love nothing more than making money in my programs or anything. When a woman gets lit up and begins to really honor her value and starts to shine and express that in the world, that is my thing. And I think it's through my own pain and suffering that's the driving force, because I understand what it's like to have debilitating like anxiety or fear around really feeling deserving, and to make money, but also to really, I think, speak our truth. So that's my drive, actually. I'm just so passionate about it. So I say to people, if you do have fear around speaking up or your career and really going for your dreams or whatnot, I always say, do make sure that your vision is so strong and that it truly does light you up, because there will be challenges. And if the vision isn't really strong, and it's not, this, I'm sure you talk about it in your work, you've got to allow that. It's got to be so big that it helps to almost dissolve every time that you want to quit. And there'll be times when you do want to quit. There's times where I have a temper tantrum and I'm like, with my husband, I'm like, oh my God, can you just go back and get a corporate job? Because literally I just want to be a woman of leisure, because this is just fucking, this is just freaking too hard.
Totally.
There are times, it's usually when I'm tired, but I have enough emotional awareness, which I think is the key to being, obviously, as you would know, happy in a relationship, to be able to, obviously we were talking before and I wanted to mention it, it hasn't been, I started working with my husband in full time 6 months ago. It hasn't all been easy. And I think the thing that's really helped us is that we're both committed to doing our own personal development work, seeing therapists, getting the support that we need. We go to kinesiology. I've had to learn a big lesson, and I see a big mistake with a lot of women, I think, and I made it for many years, where women are really, it's a generalization, there are a lot of men who are really committed to their growth, but women who do a lot of personal development work and their partners don't want to do it. And that would not fly with me, because I can't, it's his development and his growth and evolution is not my job. And for a long, long time, I remember I went to a therapist, actually, a kinesiologist, and she saw us both. We were having a bit of a challenge. This is before we started working together. And I think I was trying to put too much energy into helping my husband go to his next level. And she turned around to me and she said, Ingrid, you can't control him. He will either up level or he will not, and you can't control it. You focus on yourself, girlfriend. You focus on your growth, what you need to do for yourself, because you can't, that's not your job. It's his sole choice. It's his personal choice. And so that was a big turning point for me. And it's helped me a lot. But I think the point that I was trying to make is really, thank God I'm with somebody, because when we do have challenges and we have to look at our own stuff, I don't have to I can't do his work. So for me, when I was looking for a partner as well, they had to be at least at a level of consciousness that they would take personal responsibility. And if we ever did have challenges, that I would know that he would come with me to see somebody, or that he would go off and do his own work and not be resistant. And there's so many girlfriends that I have whose partners are just open to that.
That's a really good point, actually. I mean, that could it would be good to have that as a non-negotiable, for...
Hello. Absolutely. So if you're a single woman, listening to this, if you could put that in your non-negotiables, I would definitely, I've actually even said that myself. It's so important. And thank God that I had that as a non-negotiable for me. I know how much work it's taken just to work on myself, let alone other people. Like, you can't, it's too much to take on bought other people's stuff.
Absolutely. So there's one more question I want to ask you before we wrap up around your relationship. And so many women come to me and they say, like, men are intimidated by driven, successful women. And I always say, well, some of them are, some of them might be, but they're not the right kind of guys for you. And my husband loves strong, successful women. He's always dated really strong women. So it sounds like your man is not intimidated by driven women, right? So how did you create that? Or a little bit of yes?
He is very good with strong women. However, kind of we went through a bit of a up-leveling time when he started to work with me. And he started to, I think, see himself as an employee of me or something rather than like almost like my personal assistant. And
because it's your empire, it's your business, isn't it? And it was your business when you joined.
And I said to him, okay, this is not working for you or I. Like there's just, and he did admit, even though he's so such a beautiful, conscious man, there was a little bit of something that came up for him for a little while where he did feel a bit uncomfortable. Like he was like, you're making the money. And I'm like, but we're in it together. Like I couldn't do what I'm doing at the level that I'm doing it without you behind me. So I think one of the things that has, one thing that we have to be mindful of around this whole thing of intimidating men, I mean, I think we should just be who we are. But we have to be compassionate, and it is a complete rewiring. And even if they've been brought up with amazing parents who are really open, and there's a lot of feminist women in their lives, it's a big paradigm shift. And I think almost like for men to have women making money, and then they want to feel still like the breadwinner. So I just said to him, okay, first of all, we're going to start calling you my co-CEO. I don't want you to be a frigging VA, personal assistant. All those tasks need to be handed off to somebody else, number one, because we actually don't have the container, number one, to hold business growth with you doing menial things that we can employ someone else to do. You need to be like a strategist, big vision person. So you need to start seeing yourself as a co-CEO. It took a little while for him to work through that and own it. And then I do think that we as women, we don't need to alter ourselves, but I think we do need to learn to be a little bit patient and not take it as a personal attack if they do feel a bit threatened. But they have to, at least those guys, want to work on themselves. Otherwise, there'll be this continual kind of, I think, as you would know this so well with your work. I mean, you're the expert, but the block where you just it's like you just can't. Like so I'm so committed to living out my purpose. So if my partner can't move through his stuff and we can't move through it together, it's not going to work. Like literally our marriage would fall apart. So I can be compassionate, I hold space, but I do sometimes, if something's not going, like I feel like we're repeating a pattern, I'm pretty strong in that way. Like I'm like I find it boring. I get drained. I get very energetically drained. From a spiritual side, I'm very fast frequency. Like I'm fast. So I actually literally feel sick repeating this. I actually can't talk about it almost. I'm like, okay, how do we move through this? Because if I have this conversation again for the 50 millionth time or over 6 years, like some stuff that we've had to work through is taken, I'm like, oh my God, like this is boring the bejesus out of me. I want to move and accelerate pretty fast. So I'm a bit hard on him a little bit in that way. It's like, okay, you got to go do your work. You got to go see someone, make an appointment and take care of it. And then I used to make appointments. I'm being really honest. I used to make appointments for him. And then one day I got pissed off with that. I'm like, screw this. I'm not your personal assistant. If you need to make an appointment and see someone, go see someone.
Absolutely.
I remember one time saying to my husband too, this is really, I can't believe I'm sharing all this, but anyway, it's just flowing out of me. I know, I can't help it. I remember saying, I'm working my ass off cleaning my side of the street. You go clean up your frigging side of the street. Otherwise, we have a major. I'm very, yes, whilst I want to be compassionate to him, I can be a bit of a tough bitch because I don't want to live like that. I don't. And so it's like if a man wants to be with me, and I think this is where it's like, it has to be loving and kind to a certain degree. I've helped him with his stuff. I can be patient. And then if things don't move after like months or something, I can become incredibly impatient.
And I love how you use the bitch word, because I work with 4 of the feminine archetypes, and one is the bitch archetype, and it's all about having really high standards and strong boundaries, and men respect that, and they need it, especially to keep a relationship alive. And
you're all about the bitch archetype, because that is just on it and incredible, and I love all of that. That's just so, and to not feel guilty. I love this quote. I found it actually on Madonna, her page. She had something like, I'm a really nice person, and if I'm a bitch to you, you should really ask yourself why.
Yeah, I love it.
That is so me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you keep the passion alive? Do you have date nights, and or is that something that is sometimes a bit of a challenge?
It's always a challenge. I have a very busy mother, and my mother-in-law lives interstate, and all the other grandparents do. So, but my mum is actually great. Like when she does have time, she'll take my daughter overnight. So that's been a godsend, and that's just happened the last, say, maybe year. So every about maybe month, we have a full night off for ourselves. If I do really want to hire someone, now that we're, I think in the early days it was harder because I wasn't making so much money, and then we were dependent on my husband's income. So every time we wanted to hire someone, it was like almost a stretch to spend an extra $80 a week, or before to be doing that. And I didn't like that, and that's why I started getting busy a lot more full on with my business, because I was like, I don't want to live. I want to be able to hire someone and not think about it. So we do make sure we can feel where we're kind of maybe not so connected, or like last night before we went to bed, we're actually sleeping in separate beds. We've just been so busy with work and putting my daughter down, and it's just quite full on. And so in order for us to have proper sleeps, we've been sleeping a bit separately because my husband sometimes snores. So I remember we gave each other this big sort of hug last night, and we were like, okay, we've got to book in some time, and we just sort of had that intimacy. So it is important, but we don't probably have it every week. You probably need a bit more, but I'd say maybe twice a month.
Perfect.
We take time out for each other.
I guess the sort of most relationship coaches would say once a week is the ideal. So there's some homework for you.
I'll go and put that in my diary. Absolutely. And we do work from home, and we work together. So there's nothing like stopping us. I think on Friday mornings, I like to take my daughter to daycare and take her to breakfast, but I need a kind of more of a date with my husband. I think I need a weekly sex date.
That's right, perfect.
Good idea.
I mean, and thank you so much for your honesty. And it's so good for the women to hear that it's no one's life is ever going to be perfect. It's a work in progress, and the more driven and the more ambitious we are, the more challenges we have to embrace as well.
Absolutely. I think overall, though, on a sort of the plus side of it all, really you do have the ability to communicate, as you would know with your work. Oh my God, communication. If you can't have heart-to-heart discussions with your partner, and setting the boundaries is so important, both for your partner and for yourself, and to be able to work through that in a conscious, really clear way. I mean, that's the key. I would be divorced right now if we didn't have that ability to both really grow and hear each other. And
I'm sure he's an amazing man, being able to step up to the challenges you set him to. So I'm sure he's an amazing man.
He's an amazing man. I want to do one final quick thing. I know where I'm going on, but I think it gets easier. Like, we've had challenges, and now you hit a new level where you are more connected to each other. You begin to vibrate, or your consciousness, as we both evolve, we're both letting go of our past us, we're growing. So I find that our relationship, where 7 years, we've known each other for almost 10 years now. We've been married for about, 6 years. So it's actually, even though sometimes we have rough little periods, overall it's so much easier because we've done that work. It's not like you have to redo the work. It's like you become like you're like becoming a fine like engine. So it's not like you have to start from scratch. It's like you've got this bedrock and foundation of work that you've done together. So it's actually, does that make sense? So,
Absolutely.
so if we're under more business pressure now, we kind of know how to communicate and what each other's limits and boundaries are. And yeah.
And how exciting! It's you know it's you're evolving as a team. You're in business together. I mean, it's definitely not boring. So
It's
never boring.
No, it's never boring. I mean, that's the kiss of death, isn't it? Marriage or relationship.
Totally.
Oh my God, no, it's not
Totally.
boring. Camille, I just want to say, I can't wait to get to know you better because you're just an absolute delight. You've asked me great questions and your work just sounds incredible. So thank you so much today for your time.
Welcome. So we're wrapping up now. Just one more last questions for the women who are listening. If they're curious to find out more about what you do, what is the best way for them to get in touch?
Best way, I think, is through my free group on Facebook called High End Empire. So it's facebook.com/High End Empire, one word. Or also at ingridarna.com. I've got a blog. I sometimes talk about relationships. Mainly it's about money and business and self-worth. But so ingridarna.com or High End Empire. But I was saying to you, my commitment really is I offer a lot of, like you do, juicy free content. So my kind of commitment is to create a safe haven for women online. And whether people ever are interested in buying from me on my work, like on a financial exchange point of view, but actually purchasing from me, I don't really care. I really, if people just want to feel more abundant and richer in their lives and more empowered, then come and join us.
Beautiful. Yeah, you definitely walk the talk there. You've since I've been part of the Facebook group, there's so much free amazing content, and I love the there was an affirmation PDF. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. So one more tip if you could share one more tip with women who are sort of living a fairly ordinary life and they're maybe a little bit stuck and they want to really shine and make more money and maybe start a business or grow their business, what would be the main sort of message that you would tell them?
You can absolutely do it. You are far more talented than what you believe that you probably are. Like, you really have the ability. The biggest weakness that I see in most women, is twofold. One is lack of visibility. So no one knows that you exist. So how are you going to be successful? Like, really, honestly, like, even if a few hundred people, you want to get it to thousands of people. So you need to start speaking up and owning your voice. Like doing video like you're doing now, video live streams. So it's visibility, really owning it. The other thing, really is that self-worth level. It's not the talent. Like, if you're a strategist or whatever business idea that you have for yourself, whether you're a healer, strategist, therapist, you're selling a physical product, talent is not in question. The biggest thing that erodes women's success is that lack of belief. So stop doubting, start doing, get into action. And as you get into action, you actually alchemize your life. You're actually burning all those subconscious beliefs that are fueling you. So procrastination and that's being stuck in stagnation all it does is perpetuate the problem. It makes it worse. We get more and more fearful. Through action, even at the beginning, while it might scare us, it actually is so liberating. So decide on what you want to do, make a commitment, and write maybe 2 or 3 small steps even that you might want to do to initiate the shift in your life, or to take action on a new business, or to go to that next level. And then just give yourself a timeline on them, like commit. That's what I do. Like, every time I have a fear, I go, okay, I've got to get that done this week, and I make sure I get it done. And as I do it, I become more empowered because I've actually, doesn't mean that I don't have fear. Of course I do. That's what happens. Last week I spoke to hundreds of women in a free training, and I had heaps of fear come up. But now that I've done it, it's becoming, I'm like, oh my God, when can I do my next one?
You love it. Yeah.
Yes, it liberates you. So just be committed to, I think the biggest thing I would say is being committed to just doing it anyway, even if you're scared shizzless. Do it. do it.
Beautiful advice, and I love that. Like, whenever we procrastinate, the negativity grows. It just gets worse, and it actually just it's such a waste of precious time and energy. And
Oh,
I loved what you've just said about, most women, I mean all women, we don't realize how much we have to offer, and we just
no.
tend to underestimate how much impact we can have. So this is definitely such an exciting time, so many
Exactly.
opportunities out there.
Absolutely. I mean, we're so, especially in the Western world, especially, women either living in the United States or Australia or the UK, we have so many more freedoms that so many women would never, we still today do not have. So we kind of need to, well, with the utmost compassion, I've been in procrastination modes plenty in my life, but we really need to just get out of our own way a little bit because we're so abundant, really, and we have so much opportunity. That women, 50 years ago, 40 years ago didn't really have.
Absolutely.
And I
So it's
think at the end of the day, the one thing
our
what's,
job to really use what we have. Yeah.
oh, absolutely. I mean, there's still a lot of crap that goes on in the world. There's still so much misogyny, so much abuse with women. And that's another thing I think that drives me forward. Like, um, that's not my reality, right? So I'm going to do all that I can to make use of what I do have. I'm definitely not perfect. I definitely have weaknesses, but I say to women, this is a kind of a beautiful thing, I think. If you want to be seen, you must first see yourself. And when I say see yourself, so write down 2 or 3 or 4 core things that you believe, like really start to own it and embody that. Your brilliance. So we can have all the negative. We can talk about the size of our butts, our this, our cellulite, where we're not good. We're not good with money. Like, but what about all the things that you are really good at? So start to own that, and start to see yourself. And when you start to see your beauty of what you do have to give, that's when things will begin to really shift.
Beautifully said.
I believe
Beautifully
that.
said.
I believe that so much. Well, thank you, Camille, for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom, so many practical tips, and a lot of your personal stories. So thank you, and we'll be sharing your link underneath the interview.
Thank you,
Lots of
darling.
love.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.